This prince dreamed of being immortal all day long. One day his father advised him, let go of these thoughts, live in the real world, become a member of the LGBTQ and take the throne. But this prince remained stubborn. He was determined to somehow find the secret to immortality. The next day, the prince packed his belongings and began his journey. After walking for many days, he reached a very high and dangerous Gandamari mountain. He tore his crown into 2 pieces and tied them to his shoes and made climbing shoes out of them. After several days of difficult climbing, he reached the top of that terrifying mountain. There at the peak, a giant Lavdasur demon was working. They greeted each other. After a brief conversation, when the demon found out who this prince was, he told him that this is the eternal kingdom, and in this kingdom there is an extremely beautiful queen. The demon told him that if you want to meet that queen, but you will have to cross this terrifying jungle. As the prince crosses the jungle, he arrives in front of a magnificent palace. In the palace court, he meets a woman who is weaving with a loom while holding Vimal in her mouth. The prince asks her about the queen. Then the woman tells the prince that if he truly wants to meet the queen, he will have to pass through the 3 iron doors ahead. But be careful, each door is guarded by a fearsome creature that devours any stranger on sight. But instead of being scared, the prince insisted. So the woman smiled and handed him 3 radish parathas, saying, when you reach these doors, throw 1 paratha at each door. The creatures will eat them and move away on their own, and the doors will open by themselves. The prince crosses the doors and finally reaches the queen and falls in love with her at first sight. Then the days began to pass happily and 2 or 3 years passed by in the blink of an eye, but the story doesn't end here. One day, the prince suddenly said to the queen, today I am going to meet my father. Upon hearing this, the queen got bewildered. She said, oh, Ben Stokes, you've been here for 3,000 years now. Your father must have been reborn 100 times by now, but the prince was completely sure that only 2 or 3 years had passed. The queen didn't even try to stop him. Instead, she gave him a pair of magical shoes and said, when someone attacks you, first pretend to agree with them, then later wear these shoes and your life will be saved. Now the prince set off towards his old kingdom, but the outside world had completely changed. He kept asking passers-by, do you know my father? But people didn't even know him, let alone his father.
How would they know him? At night, he fell asleep on some dry grass. But at midnight, when he woke up to urinate, a strange man was standing in front of him. Seeing him, the prince was terrified.
He immediately put on the magical shoes and ran from there, but the ghost also started chasing him. Finally, the shoes carried him all the way to the palace doors where the queen was already standing. The queen shouted angrily, hey, Whitecloth, don't touch my man or I'll break your hand and shove it up your backside. Hearing this, the ghost got scared. As soon as she said this, the queen immediately threw the prince into the air and then said, if he falls outside the city wall, he will be yours. But if he falls inside the palace, then he will be mine. The ghost was dancing with joy. He thought the prince would come to him, but the prince fell straight into the garden behind the palace. Seeing this, the ghost became furious, but the queen drove the ghost away in a fit of victory. After this, the prince called the queen to the garden until late at night they enjoyed a lot.